guys, Kirill here with Carismo Design. Today we'll be installing a TTRS steering wheel. The installation process is kind of similar to the R8, so you could be watching this video to figure out how to install this wheel in both cars. Alright guys, so just like with any installation of any steering wheel, you want to disconnect your battery so that there's no electrical current left in the system, just as a safety precaution, as always. In the TT and the TTRS, the battery is in your trunk. You'll flip open your carpet, you'll find the battery on your right-hand side, and you'll just disconnect the negative terminal. All you need is a 10mm socket as usual. As you see, we've already done that. Once you're done with that, we can proceed towards the steering wheel portion of the install. All right guys, so we got the battery disconnected. Next step is in your interior. We're just gonna pull out the airbag so that we can free up your original steering wheel. All right, so this is the back of the steering wheel. As you see, we've rotated nearly 90 degrees. Wherever is comfortable, you just need to free up this hole right here. So right here where that hole is, inside there is your spring that's holding the airbag in place. So you want to catch that spring on the outer portion of the circle, so to speak, and imagine that you're pushing it inward towards the center of the airbag to unhinge, unclip this side of the airbag. Okay, so for demonstration purposes, we took off the plate, which actually holds the clips that hold your airbag in the steering wheel. It's a little hard to see when it's inside there, and it's definitely impossible to see when you're trying to unclip it, but just knowing what you're aiming for while you're, putting that Allen key through the back and trying to push the spring in helps you understand, what it should feel like and whether you're getting there or whether you're, hitting completely the wrong spot. So here's the plate that you'll see on the inside of your steering wheel. Here's the back of it. As you see, this line right here, these two pieces, these are just spring mechanisms. And what we're trying to do from the back here is actually push on this portion so as to release the airbag, which is the airbag clip, which is sitting in this hole right here. So once we push on this far enough, I believe you don't even have to push that far. It doesn't have to clear all the way. Once you push it enough, you'll feel that your airbag actually unclips on this one side. And once you rotate it another 180 degrees, you're gonna be doing it on the exact opposite side, same motion. That's when your airbag unclips fully and you can pull it out. All that's left is the connector and your airbag comes out. So on this actual plate itself, you're gonna see a ground pin. You're gonna remove that. That'll be the pin that's floating freely right here in the steering wheel. You're also gonna see the center connector, which is for your clock spring. One more connector right above it and the connector on the bottom. All three of those, including ground, making it 4, get disconnected. Your airbag comes out as one piece and you're good to go. You put this aside and now we can work on the steering wheel itself. So now that the airbag's out of the car, all that's left is to unscrew the center nut to release the steering wheel off of the car, and we can transfer the guts over onto your new carbon steering wheel. So the first time you're doing this might take some force. You might need somebody to hold the steering wheel steady to break this nut loose. After that, it should be pretty straightforward. When you're removing any steering wheel from any car, you want to make sure you're not yanking too hard. Try to push side by side a little bit and just wiggle it off of the shaft. There we go. So here we got your stock steering wheel off of the car and your new Carismo steering wheel. In this part of the video, we'll be showing you how to transfer over all of the guts, your center trim, your buttons, your paddles over from your stock steering wheel over to the new one. So the first thing we're gonna take off and transfer over from your old steering wheel is the airbag clipping plate. This is held in by 3 T20 screws. You're just gonna unscrew these 3 and this plate should come right off. You're gonna do the reverse order of installation on your new steering wheel. You're just gonna pop it right in and screw it in with those 3. Another thing you're gonna remove with the T20 is actually these 4 bolts around the perimeter. These 4 bolts hold, first of all, this housing, your center trim, and as well they hold the 2 buttons. As you see, this steering wheel's got the drive select and the stop to start. As you know, on the R8, you could have 4 buttons here, but the mounting technology and the mounting way is the exact same. You simply unscrew the 2 T20 bolts that hold them in place and you pop them right out. Be it the 4 buttons or be it the 2 buttons, the assembly and disassembly of the steering wheel works the same way. So we've taken off the plastic base plate that laid under the airbag clipping plate. All it is, it's laying in there and there's a ground pin connected on it. So just unclip that, take it out, super easy. We've unscrewed the 4 bolts we were talking about along the perimeter of your ring right here. And all that's left is 2 bolts each holding in your buttons that we talked about. So once you unscrew those 4 bolts, These buttons pop right out. As you see, they're loose. All that's left to do is disconnect the connectors on each side of the buttons, and then the buttons are freed up. There we go, button comes out and you're ready to mount it on your other steering wheel. So we've disconnected the buttons on both sides. Now the trim is free to come out. All it is a bunch of pins embedded into the rubber housing of the steering wheel. So you'll need a little bit of elbow grease, a little bit of prying. Just make sure you try to pull it out evenly. Don't bend any of these, any of these tips of the trim too hard on its own. You want to gently get them out little by little together, and then eventually they'll just come out all together as one single piece like that. What's holding this trim in right now is just paddle connector wires. Once we unclip those, this trim comes off. We can remove the paddles and start installation on your new Carismo steering wheel. Here's your steering wheel fully disassembled. You've got the faceplate that clips in the airbag, your shift paddles, your satellite buttons, your center trim as one piece, and the frame itself. So this old frame you're gonna put aside. We're gonna grab your new Carismo steering wheel, and installation of all the componentry we just removed is the exact same except in reverse. One thing to keep in mind is if you ordered custom shift paddles, larger carbon shift paddles to go with your steering wheel, we're gonna have to swap over the paddle clicking mechanism into your new shift paddle before we put the paddles back on. So we'll show you how to do that right now. So you've got your OEM paddle here. What we want to do is remove this piece, which is your mechanism. This is how your paddle shifts, how it clicks, from this, the actual shift paddle housing. So to do that, there's a guide pin that holds this mechanism inside of the paddle housing. We need to remove this guide pin, and the housing, the mechanism will come right out of the housing. So this guide pin, if you look closely, actually resides right here along the inner edge of the paddle. We pulled it out a little bit just to demonstrate it. So originally it sits deeper inward, it sits all the way flush here, and all you have access to is this opening here to start wedging it out. Once you wedge it out a little bit through this opening, it'll move up as you see right here, and then you'll just be able to take, pliers or whatever, grab it here and just like pull it out. Here, I'm pulling it out a little more to show you. Here, I pulled it out a little more. So just to explain how we wedge it out in the beginning, here's this opening, and you'll see a little plastic bit inside of it. What you want to do is position a flathead or anything where you can get some traction against the rod itself into this opening and try to wedge it up. Do that a couple of times until you actually get a little bit of distance here and the guide pin starts to come out. And as soon as you have enough of the guide pin to be able to grab with pliers, grab onto that, gently pull it out. Obviously be gentle with the entire mechanism. You don't want to break anything. And once that pin is out, mechanism comes out, we put it in the new paddle, put the pin through, and we're done. All right, so everything's back and assembled. You've got your Carismo steering wheel. All of your original internals, your electronics are back in here, your center trim, your extended shift paddles if you purchase those. Just make sure that everything clicks nicely. Make sure everything is sitting flush all around, and time to put it back in the car. Your new Carismo design steering wheel is assembled. Just for comparison's sake, here's the stock noodle of a steering wheel. Here's what you'll be driving with after that install. Let's get it put on the car and finish up. First step is to make sure that when you're putting the steering wheel on, you align the little notch on your steering wheel with the notch on your steering wheel shaft, just to make sure everything is nice and centered. Get that positioned. Also, just keep in mind, your clock spring is right here. The plastic piece coming out of that clock spring housing should align with the metal hole in the steering wheel. Just make sure you're not looking only at this, but this hasn't turned as it rotates freely. All right, so we tightened the center nut. We plugged in all of the connectors, your clock spring, the bottom connector here, the top connector. There was a ground. Just remember, make sure nothing is loose here, nothing is, not clipped in. You'll have everything tightened here, and then we just plug in the airbag. But here are the two pins that click into the springs we originally were, getting the airbag out of. And once you hear those two click, airbag doesn't wobble anymore, you're done. All right, so we've got everything buttoned up. Your airbag is in place. Everything is tightened. Your center nut is tightened. The car is fully assembled. Now we can reconnect the battery make sure all your buttons are working, and it's time to take the car for a spin. And there you have it, guys. This was the installation video for the Audi TT, TTRS, and Audi R8 steering wheels. My name is Kirill. I'm with Carismo Design. If you ever need some interior carbon for your Audi, be that a steering wheel or some other interior bits, please feel free to hit us up on Instagram under Carismo Design.